Welcome to Sisu and Slay by Horizon, a podcast where we untangle and make sense of how you can navigate Finland as an international professional through stories of building aligned career paths, successful integration, and experts who can give you a peek behind the structures of Finnish work life. Today, we're diving into how you can navigate the Finnish work market as a generalist when so many roles seem to be built for specialists. We'll also get a peek behind the scenes at the Finnish game industry, which is super exciting. Here, helping us dig into all of this, we have Öykü Kural, project manager at Supercell. And welcome and thank you for joining us today, Öykü.
Thank you, Louis.
Before we get into today's topic, can you tell us where your career actually started and how you eventually ended up in Finland?
I graduated as an engineer from university, and then I did my pre-master in Germany in German business culture. And then I did my master in two specializations, brand management, innovation, and creativity. And I worked in different environments, fintech, e-commerce, gaming. So I can say that I can fit into that generalist role. I work with companies like Riot Games, Netmarble, Escape Planet, and Royo, and now Supercell. I also worked at a software company in Germany that provided software solutions for German banks like GLS, Triodos Bank. The thing that actually the real story here is that when I actually moved to Europe, then I learned that I have to rebuild my identity from scratch because nobody knows the schools that you have graduated from. Nobody knows the companies, the local ones that you worked at, whether they are big or small, successful or not. So I had to just start over, left my ego, and just depending on my skills that I have, which worked out well because Finnish market actually rewards people that connect the dots between people, tech, and business. So I started my career in gaming and it worked out.
Yeah. And when you look at your career in hindsight, did it always make sense at the time when you were building, or is it now that you're looking in the rear mirror and you're like, oh, now it makes sense how I built my career?
Exactly. In the beginning, it didn't make any sense. It was not strategic or anything, but in hindsight, everything made sense because I always focused on the roles and I wanted to always work in an environment that I can learn fast and I can adapt fast. And being an international actually helped a lot because in the long way, the skills that I built were directly mapped with adaptability and clarity and just fast learning. So it helped a lot in that sense.
Yeah. Awesome. I think it's really easy to build something in the moment and you don't really know where you're going. But something that is a struggle for many is kind of that selling yourself without lying when you're kind of doing little pivots or taking the next step and you don't really have the visibility yet fully of where you're going or where you're growing. Especially the Finnish job market seems highly specific. With loads of super detailed requirements and expectations and so on. What was your first reaction to that when you moved or you were planning to move here when there's so many super, super highly specific expectations?
Honestly, the first reaction that I had was just this is impossible. When I looked at the Finnish job ads, it reads we want one person that did the same role for 10 years and also have a fresh mindset and also have kind of speaks 5 languages. And it was actually a shock. But then I realized something, that those lists were not the truth. They were just wish lists. And actually businesses only wanted to just see what that person can impact based on their business outcomes in the first 6 months to 12 months. So they only cared about the value that you bring. So that from that moment, I completely ignored the requirements or lists or whatever they wanted to see in my CV, because I knew that because I had to rebuild my identity, because whatever I say that like how prestigious the university that I graduated at, no one knows, no one cares. So I had to focus on the capabilities that I have so I can map it with the underlying things they want. So that was my reaction.
Yeah. Did you ever look at a role and think, I can do this, but my CV doesn't look like this? Like you just know that like, you know, you're reading through this wish list, as you said, and you're like, I feel in myself, I can totally do this. I can ace this. But how do I show this if you don't have like directly applicable experience per se?
Many times I felt like that, but right now, I as I said, I don't care any of those. I will just like go for it if I want a role. But it was not easy to come to this level. When I was in Germany, there was one night that I got lost. I was in Karlsruhe Street, Kolbenackerweg, and I was there in the middle of the night with no internet connection. And internet connection meant like having a proper German ID, and German ID required bureaucracy. It took time, and I'm there in the middle of the street, an engineer who has been like working for 10 years, very capable woman, and I couldn't even open a map. And it was so scary. And I couldn't even knock any doors because I don't speak German, and I got so scared. But then because of that day and the many days after where I had to break my ego into pieces, rebuild again, I gained skills that no other locals have to build. And that was actually the key point that like I was able to transfer my qualities and capabilities during the interviews. And from that moment, it gotten so easier. I think like my main message can be here is that most of the time international think that being an international is a disadvantage, but I think it is the main advantage because we know how to be functional when everything is unfamiliar and just like scary, but we learn how to calm under stress because we know what is at stake and how to move forward. So from that moment, I got brave and just like go for it.
Like having this really scary experience where you had to like just kind of like get over yourself a little bit, or like this fear.
Not like coming from like brave up and just like move forward, but more like, yes, this is a scary moment. I am lost. I need to find my home. What can I do in this moment? Because I don't have that luxury to froze because it's getting dark. It is cold. It is winter. So I just like looked at the streets to see something familiar and just like look at that like shop signs. And then I found my home. And having that, like, it is a kind of ability to stay functional and like forcing yourself to be calm is so useful in especially like changing environments or like businesses that look for growth and they don't know what to do, and it, like you have to be innovative but fast, but at the same time you have to think properly, just like take risks in those like chaotic environments or in the meetings. I realized that I am the calmest person because I've been freaked out so many times, and that meeting is not scary, or like talking with C-level executives are not scary anymore.
Yeah, so you took that experience and you were like, hey, I can actually use this in a professional setting and like use it to demonstrate and to like kind of dig into this like inner resource or resilience to navigate.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So, like, very apparent from this and from other conversations we've had before this episode, I would say you're really good at connecting the dots between, past experiences and a new role you're trying to get into. Like you said, like you will go for it and then you will kind of like dig into what have I done before, like what is there already. How do you do that in practice without feeling like you're faking it?
I have one rule. I never claim the experience I don't have. So that is the not faking part comes in. Usually in my experience, business also don't care about what you cannot do. They only care about what you can do. So during the interviews or during the preparation that like in my narrative, I make sure that I never say I don't have X, I don't have Y. Just, I see that you have this requirement. I don't structure my thought process or my kind of narrative in that sense. I looked at their business and I try to understand what they need within that role. I try to understand if this business is on growth mode or they are protecting their margins or they are in their tech debt or they are looking for investments in marketing. And you can learn a lot by just like even checking on LinkedIn and look at the open roles, how many of them, or just like try to stalk the newest hire and look at their profile. It tells you a lot. So I just like do a little bit of preparation and I just like say, okay, this is what I think that success looks like in this role. And I prepare like 2 stories in my past experience that I can show them as a proof that I can help them to reach that success. And in the end, I say like, this is the risk you're taking by potentially hiring me, but this is my plan to catch up and have the provide the mitigation plan there. So I believe this is not faking. This is just like professional strategy with honesty. So from that moment, just like actually hiring managers love about it. Like you're very clear and you can just like show what kind of impact you can bring.
Do you bring those like stories already to your cover letter or do you save it for the interviews only? And do you like physically, I'm sorry, like this is super practical now, but like do you physically like write them down? Like for me at least, like when I write something down, whether it's on paper or computer, I feel like I kind of like have to process it a little bit more. But is that like fully mental for you or do you actually write down somewhere? Like
I definitely write down. Before this podcast, we had a little chat that I said like I'm a perfect student. I study a lot. If I don't prepare, I freak out, anxiety disorders. So I definitely prepare, but I know one thing. If you memorize something, when you make a mistake, it will look like a mistake. But you make a mistake while you're flowing with your speech, you can like recover from them with a little joke and everything. So I try to prepare. I try to write a script or like highlights on the narrative that I have or the research that I had in that business based on the role, of course. But I don't try to just like stick to it fully because it depends on like what kind of a profile that I'm interviewing. It can be like a people person. It can be like a very technical hiring person. So it differs from that. But the key point here is to understand actually what kind of a person they're looking for and going forward from that.
Yeah. And like kind of like continuing from this topic a little bit forward, you've said before that trusting yourself matters even when you don't have direct experience. So exactly like pulling these stories that might or might not be exactly what the role is looking for, the company is looking for. was there a moment where that really mattered to you, that you knew, like you had this like story, you had mapped it out, you had reflected, you felt like you had understood like what is actually important in here, and like what am I bringing to the table?
So many times, almost all the time. But the most evident one was like when I first moved to Finland, I was looking for like job opportunities, and I found this role very intriguing, that community manager role at Rovio. And I don't have any community management experience. I have no experience in social media management nor anything related with communities. And afterwards, I learned that there were actually 300 applicants. And I got it. And it was not because my CV was perfect, but because I understood the assignment. So community managers should do two things: transform players into fans and keep a community healthy. I have been a gamer all my life. Still, I play games every day. I love belonging to communities, and I have seen the worst and the good in communities. And also, it's a strange hobby of mine. Just I love looking at social media tools roadmaps. I know it's weird, but I am not heavily actively using all social media accounts, but like from MySpace 2003 and like recently Threads in 2023, I love what kind of features that they're developing or like rolling out, or just like what's the next thing, and I love that, and it was like a personal hobby of mine, and I just like transformed these hobbies, skills, capabilities, and I just like apply it in a creative way that the hiring manager will be intrigued as well. And I'm just like,
do you plop it in there in the CV, like, by the way, or like cover letter, by the way, I'm obsessed with social media roadmaps?
Something similar. Let me tell you not secret, but like an example. While I was working at Riot Games, one day, someone sent the cake to our office, like this big. And okay, the listeners cannot see. I'm widening my arms.
Cake,
it's a big cake.
It's a big cake.
And he had printed his CV on the cake. And I never seen anything like that. At some like applicants send their application or CV in that way. And we had to call them, right? We had to, like, this is so unique and interesting. So even though not like edgy, I try to add like a little authentic meme or a picture or something that is extraordinary and not expected to my application, because most of the advice is online about like how you should write your CV or just like how you should form your motivation letter. They don't cover the hardest part, or just like they're very superficial. So among 300 applicants or even 1,000 applicants, you need to do some trick to get in the line and just like, have that wow effect. So that's.
But it sounds like you, again, like you kind of like pull from what is actually like interesting to you, or like what's funny to you, or like you say, like with memes. So it's not like just a gimmick.
It has to be honest. It has to come from you. Like I mentioned with my kind of hobby about the roadmap of the social medias, that I created a social media strategy knowing the future. And I heard later that no other applicants did that. I just like knew what's going to happen in 2 years at like TikTok or just Instagram. And instead of like, yes, I said like make sure that you have the next 6 months to 12 months have a plan, but showing that roadmap for 3 years was like funny for them, and I think it had a surprise element.
Yeah, I love that. Like, you know, really going deep and like kind of like above and beyond the expected in that sense. I love that. So we've already kind of addressed this a little bit, but like maybe shortly we can repeat this also. Like, how do you prepare for interviews when your experience isn't a perfect match, like in a way, like word for word, gaming community management, and you are like, oh, I've done gaming community management. So when it's not one-to-one, how do you prepare for interviews? Like, what do you lean on instead when you don't have directly applicable experience, or do you make it directly applicable? Because that's also one part of connecting the dots, maybe. But like, what's your take on this?
I lean on my nerdy side. What it means is that I looked at their business side as like, again, what they're trying to achieve. So every company has their like mission, vision, have their like fancy land page and everything. But that page tells you what they want to become. But financials and their business side is actually telling you where they are right now. And it is the best leverage that you can have among other, maybe everybody is doing it and I don't know. But so looking at that, what is those outcomes that they are looking for? Are they like value, like risk, speed, or just like clarity, or like being calm under stress if it is more like a project management job, or quality if it is like more like a testing or quality or player support managing role. So understanding that behind the job descriptions is actually the key to have a better preparation for the applications. So there is no hack. It is just like understanding the business, transforming your capabilities in a language that they understand. And even it is like tech or creative role or anything, just like personalizing and bring your authentic self with the knowledge that you have, and just like forget about the requirements, forget about the years of experience. I can actually give you another example where my husband looked at a company where he was so excited. He wanted to like work with them, and there was like a head of lead role with matches with what he does, but he was not that level. So one day he reached out the hiring manager on LinkedIn, and luckily his profile was not locked. So he sent this like genuine message that, hey, I saw this role. I know that my experience won't match with this role, but I want to just like have a quick chat to like tell you my ideas and how can I see this gap. How can I fill that gap? I just want to have a quick chat. And afterward, like 1 week later, they had this chat with the lead of that role, and he got hired. They opened a new role based on the gaps that he mentioned. They realized, oh, we need that person. They didn't know. So you can even go beyond the CVs or the titles.
Just was that gap like, how did he know there was that gap? Was this the same, like basically your process, which is like, okay, company financials, give me the business details. And he was looking at it and he was like, wait, that's where you want to go. This is where you're at. And this is my idea for how we get there. Or was it different from that? Do you remember?
Yes, exactly. Similar to what you just said is that he just looked at the people that are working at the company and he saw that the specific role that he was working at was not a title there. And then he looked at the same craft to see if there's like similarities that the role brings. And then he see that, okay, they have a product, but there is the growth theme, but there is no bridge that like in this company that actually brings that product's perspective, growth expertise. So he just like leaned on that.
Yeah.
So I did a little bit research.
Yeah.
Again.
So when you go through this process of discovering the business side of wherever you want to be working next, and you're like, okay, financials, business, like what's happening next, where are they now, and so on. How does that practically change the way you talk about yourself in connection to that role? Like, does your pitch shift, or like how does that show up? So let's say that I don't know what would be a good example, but like you're wanting to pivot from gaming now to like, I don't know, like a fintech company, and you're checking their whatever business information you have accessible to you, and you identify a gap. Does that like, or somewhere where you have an idea of like, this is how I would do it, like actually like we should be selling fintech on TikTok or whatever it is that you're like, like I can see it in my mind, like does that shift your, pitch? Have you ever had this experience where you're like going in with one idea and then doing your kind of like self-study and then being like, oh wait, no, actually this is how I'll position my experience, or these are the things that I will bring up from my past?
So I can give you an example where I have to shift from a role to another role, and I actually understand the business. So the thing was that, let's go back. I need to just like rewind the time a little bit, where I explained you in the beginning that I did my master degree in like management, also like the brand management, innovation, and creativity. I never understood the business side of things because I only focused on like mathematics, physics, or like more like creative work. And I learned that lack of knowledge of understanding financial sheets. What is the liquid asset? What is the margin? What is that business in a strategic level has been just so confusing for me before, not knowing those things in the company, where there are layoffs, when they open new teams, or when there's like organizational restructure. It was so difficult for me to understand, why is this happening? Why they are letting go of this division? So that's why I just like realized that is gap. And then I went to this like business side of the training. And how it helps is that when you understand the business, you start speaking about outcomes. And everybody cares about outcomes and impact. And how it's shaped right now, the way I speak during the interviews or while I'm working, is that I talk about what will be the cost, what is the risks, what are the dependencies, what kind of quality we're expecting from the system or product or whatever, and what can we do in the first 6 months and 12 months. And then track those goals. And having this mindset helped me shifting from a community manager to a project manager, or like working as a player support coordinator at Riot Games, to fintech company in Germany. So when you talk about outcomes, it doesn't matter what kind of a business it is. Every business has a business impact and an outcome. So it helps a lot translating experience to practical outcomes, at the same time to be the bridge between tech people and businesses, and then you take from there.
Yeah. Any quick tips for someone who's like, holy cow, I've never realized I should be looking into the business metrics of a company I'm applying for? Like, where to get started if you want to start understanding? Like, do you just Google? Do you have any sources that you found helpful in like kind of deciphering like what the heck is a balance sheet or stuff like that?
I think everybody can get the benefit of AI in that sense. You don't have to be a master of anything, or just like able to read those complex financial statements. But like I said, there are even like small tricks. Like it differs from the company and company. If it's a startup, just trust your gut feeling that they want to grow, right? Or just like if it is a very big company, just like I said, look at the profiles of the employees, or like just if you're especially just living in Finland for a while, you understand the ambition level of the companies. So you don't have to stuck yourself with the reading finances, but just like my main point is to understand what that business is going through and what they are trying to aim for.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Let's leave the financials behind for a sec and go back into the kind of like navigating work life as is and like kind of Finnish business culture, because you were just saying about this like understanding the businesses. And you've worked in roles where the job description didn't necessarily encompass the full scope of your responsibilities. What signals tell you it's okay to be proactive? And have you noticed any unspoken rules here in Finland about like taking initiative or ownership, like stepping up, and like the kind of like unsaid expectations or permissions?
So,
Like what is allowed? Like where do you feel like, I can take initiative on this without maybe even asking, that you can just do something? Like any like learnings from?
I think the businesses shape those thresholds, like the limits on how proactive you can be, or just it depends on the level of the role. But for me, I just believe in seeing a problem, think about a solution. Do I have it? I don't. If I don't have it, just leave it as is. Or if I have a solution, just bring it up, and then own it, and show that you can be accountable for it, and then start working on. But make sure that like what are the priorities? What is the cost? Proactiveness helped me. For example, my role right now at Supercell is that I was a community manager, and I was so interested in our tech, but I had no clue what a game engine does, or what is a rendering, or what is the difference between asset pipeline and UI pipeline. And now I'm just like, because of that proactiveness and my curiosity, I just like went to the head of the tech and tools and just like showed my interest. And again, nothing in my CV shows that I'm capable of doing any of those things, or I have never been work with a C++ developer. I don't even know what C++ look like. And then I showed proof that like as a generalist, they need someone that keep the internal and external communication, and then I can be that person. But one thing is that, again, I never claimed the experience that I didn't have. And nobody was expecting me to start from the day one. But as a good student, I studied a lot, and I just like asked questions a lot. And by the time when it was like my fifth month or something, I was understanding all the projects or the people's work, who is doing what, who is waiting from what, and then it worked out. But if someone would have told me that like that I would be the project manager for UI pipeline, I wouldn't have
like,
believed
what's
it.
that?
No, impossible. I wouldn't have guessed. So that proactiveness. So I think there was a part in the question was like the unspoken rules that one, never apologize that you have wide variety of skills. I know that there's some kind of like this, I call it myth, that the social anxiety, don't be loud or just don't bother anybody. But being authentic to yourself and just like speaking your mind, I don't think it is something that embarrassing or just something that you should be apologized for. You can bring your internationalism to the work, and it will be fine. So that's
Hey, I have some rapid fire questions for you.
go for it.
Let's go. Let's get into it. What is one mistake internationals make when applying to specialist roles?
Thinking it is a disadvantage is a huge mistake. And the second one is that make sure what kind of energy that you're putting out there. Maybe this advice is very specific, but I have seen online that people do not understand they own their personal brand as well. So I know that there are so many unfortunate events going on, especially in the world, job market, bad hiring processes, or just like getting ghosted or anything. But how you convey the message in public might feel good in the beginning, but might prevent you from getting the role that you want. Just like be careful what you're putting out there. That might be a very practical advice that I can give.
Yeah. What one thing generalists should stop apologizing for?
Definitely wide variety of skills, because I think internationals have this like huge skill set in fast learning, adaptability, and just like bringing clarity in a very unfamiliar environment. These are valuable.
What is one skill that helped you most in Finland that no one talks about?
One skill, being a generalist means that being a glue. Being a glue might not sound like very glamorous, but no one can ship anything without the glue. So I think that helped me a lot.
So like keeping things together and
just
aligned.
like connecting the dots, like translating worlds to world.
Got it. And then now we have some audience questions.
Exciting.
So we do have a small audience here today with us that you cannot see on the video, but I assure you they're real. And they've sent questions beforehand, and I will read them out loud for you. And then
This is the first time I'm hearing them.
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
This is like a surprise round of questions.
Yay. Something that I
can
can't
hear the
prepare for.
palpable excitement. The first question comes from Claire, who says, I'm very interested in the nuances between generalist and specialist roles. And as a generalist who has worked in a lot of niche positions, I'm constantly confused by how to best present myself. Do you have any advice for Claire or anyone who relates to this? Like, how do I like present myself?
I totally relate. I still don't think that I can present myself perfectly, but I try to switch on and off. So what I do is that when I get confused, I just try to focus on one thing at a time and just like try to ignore the one side and focus on the goal, whatever you're doing, if it is just like a job or if you're applying a role, or what is that goal you're aiming for, and just like try to take the expertise that you have within that variety, or just like find roles like I did, like a producer role or a project manager role, or any kind of role that requires you to understand both sides or both skills. Either just like get the role that fits that wide of variety, or try to split and focus on the things that you want.
Yes. Okay. And then the second question comes from Ricardo. how much overall has Finnish language proficiency played in your career progression here?
What progression? No, nothing. So I think I got lucky, just like finding roles that doesn't require speaking Finnish. But the culture, so I can say that sisu, morkis, or this like sauna concept or some like language brings the culture that I am not fluent in Finnish, but when my order is up and they call my number, I can actually understand it, that I'm at that level. But I think it is more like not the language itself, but being among those amazing Finnish local people, that understanding this like appreciation and like that like respecting the safe space and everything actually helped me to communicate better with my Finnish colleagues and understanding why we are going to sauna every team event, and I just understand now.
So, like for you, it's been more of a cultural proficiency and less about the language per se.
Yes.
Yeah. And then let's start wrapping this up. If our listeners were to remember 1 to 3 things from today's episode, what would you like those to be?
One, being an international is not your disadvantage. It is your advantage, where you should transform the skill set you have to outcomes. Second, never ever apologize being a generalist or just like devalue what it means. And the third one is there's no hack or like straightforward way to get a job. It is just like increasing your chances is what makes you lucky. So understand the business side of things. Understand what the company actually aiming for, or what the role, what is expected from the role beyond the job ad, or beyond what is written in the requirements. So I would say those 3.
Yeah. And finally, where can people find you if they want to follow you for more insights?
You can follow me on LinkedIn, or you can just like Google my name, and wherever it's fine.
I love it. Like, just Google me.
Google
I
me.
love it. Hey, thank you so much for your time and candid insights, Öykü. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
And for our listeners, next time we'll be sitting down to get the scoop on navigating Finnish startup and scale-up ecosystem with Philip Ziegler, founding customer lead at Xero. I'll catch you there at Sisu and Slay in the next episode.